very happy new year to everyone. This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I am here today once again with Integrative Health Practitioner Jill Bucaro, who is joining us all the way from, where are you now? In the Ozarks.
We are in Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri.
Fantastic, fantastic. And how was your Christmas and New Year?
It was delightful. And you?
It was fantastic. I was trying to follow all of your healthy guidance. Didn't quite go that way, but I'm feeling quite healthy now. I'm feeling quite good. Recovered from my bacchanal.
Are you still hanging on to your resolution? Because it's been about a week. Usually people are done by now.
Oh no, I never have any resolutions.
Good for you. Good for you.
There's nothing to break. Absolutely nothing to break at all. No, I'm comfortable in my own skin when it comes to things like that. So yeah, I manage it on a day-to-day basis. I think that's the best way to put it. Anyway, we're going to be speaking about something today that kind of ties into the whole idea of being healthy for January, the beginning of the new year, and that is beans, pulses, and legumes. Now, the first thing I want to ask you is, those words are almost used synonymically today, as if they're the same thing. It is my understanding that a bean or a pulse is actually the seed of the annual leguminous plant, or a annual leguminous plant. Would that be correct or false?
It's correct-ish. So the legume does refer to any plant from the Fabaceae family.
Okay.
And that would include its leaves and stems and pods. So the legume is the plant, and then the pulse is the edible seed from the plant. And then pulses include things like beans, lentils, peas. So it's like legumes, pulses, and then beans, and lentils and peas and things like that. So I kind of think of it sometimes like a car, like the car is the legume, and then the pulse is a part of the car, like the tire. Yeah. And then a bean would be a type of tire, like a snow tire. So it's like big part subcategories.
Okay, interesting automobile metaphor there. But yes, okay, I get it. I'm glad you're putting me straight here. Now, beans are, I mean, my introduction to beans would be the classic UK thing. So cans of Heinz baked beans were a staple every single week, and something I still love to this day. But beans are a massive world of different species, are they not?
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of beans, like you and I would think of, like, kidney beans, black beans, pinto beans, but there's also chickpeas and lentils. Peanuts are a legume, which a lot of times they get pushed into the nut category, but they're actually a legume. Soybeans, so those are some of the ones that we would probably know or hear most often. And then there's also ones like alfalfa and clover, but those tend to be used for like feed, not normally for us.
Right.
So the ones that we are, the beans and the lentils and peas and things like that.
Now, beans go back quite some time. They have an ancient history, I believe.
Is this where you have trivia for me?
No, it's not. I thought that would just be throwing in a question. I thought you would know the answer. Sorry, I'll cut that bit out.
No, that's okay. No, I was looking forward to hearing some goods about
it. I have. Okay, we'll rewind that bit.
That's okay.
You mentioned lentils there. I have a trivia question for you regarding lentils.
Okay.
Which country produces the most lentils in the entire world?
Turkey.
Close, but no cigar. I'll give you a second guess.
Brazil.
Way off. It's actually Canada, by far. Yes.
Wow.
95% of the world's lentils. No, that's not true. 95% of Canada's lentils are produced in the province of Saskatchewan. But yes, Canada exports a huge amount of its lentils. It produces almost three times as much as India. Its major export markets are India, Turkey, as you mentioned, and China. Not many people know that. Well, unless you're from Canada, I suppose.
Right? Yeah, I didn't know that. And I'm your downstairs neighbor here.
Yeah, of course. So There are many benefits to enjoying beans, legumes, pulses. They are delicious, for one, or they can be if they're prepared correctly. They're relatively inexpensive. They
Hmm.
are healthy, and they're also incredibly sustainable. So let's
Yeah.
get you on the, I think, the nutritional side of things, because they're incredibly nutritionally dense, aren't they?
Correct. Yes, they're incredibly nutrient dense, and they kind of sit on the fence of like what we'd consider like a protein group and a vegetable group. Like they have
Right.
some of the same properties. So, like vegetables, they provide fiber, folate, magnesium, potassium, and then like meat, they provide protein, iron, and zinc. So they kind of are one of those best of, both worlds. Just a cup of boiled pinto beans is 15 grams of protein and 15 grams of fiber.
Right.
So, average American takes in 15 grams of fiber all day when the government recommendations are, usually between like 25 and 30 grams. Although, if you talk to any like GI specialist or functional medicine practitioner, they would probably say we need more like 50
Right.
grams or more a day. And back to history, so it's estimated that in the paleo era, we were taking in well over 100 grams of fiber per day. So now we're taking in, what, 8 to 10, percent of like what we were taking in, just, all that time ago. So, but yeah, just one cup has beans has about 15 grams of fiber in it.
Now,
And they're
fiber is
helpful.
important. Sorry.
Yeah.
Now, fiber is important for the human body in so many different ways, but I believe that beans are very, very good at moderating balancing one's blood sugars, because beans tend to have a very low glycemic index, right? Would you mind
They
explaining
do.
all of that?
Yeah, they do. They have a low glycemic index, which means they're not going to spike your blood
Right.
sugar, even though they do have carbohydrates.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's just that one of the differences between like a complex carbohydrate and a simple carbohydrate, or like a simple sugar. So they do have carbohydrates, which I think sometimes we tend to, shove all carbohydrates into like a good or bad category. And there's really a lot of nuance there, and beans would be a good example of that. So they are really helpful in not spiking your blood sugar. They're very helpful in digestion. They're very helpful in regulating bowel movements. They help with even cholesterol balancing, keeping a balanced weight. So they're very, very helpful in a lot of different aspects of health.
Interesting. Now, with you having a plant-based diet, beans must be something that you have every single day, I would imagine.
I have them most days. Yeah.
Right. And what kind of preparations do you prefer when it comes to enjoying beans? And what kind of beans do you tend to enjoy?
So I have a variety. I mean, we eat chickpeas regularly. We eat white beans, or like cannellini beans,
Yeah.
navy beans, northern beans. They're kind of all lumped together. Pinto beans, black beans. I mean, we eat lentils. So we do all sorts of things. One of the things that I think is interesting that I've seen kind of more maybe over the last year is sweet ways to incorporate beans. So
Okay.
I've seen like sweet hummuses, like chocolate hummus, or like a vanilla hummus. I've seen chickpeas used in like a chocolate chip cookie, things like that. We make chocolate truffles using black beans that you would never know the base is black beans. So those are really like awesome ways. I think if you're trying to incorporate beans and you're not really sure, you don't, think you like beans, or, not sure how to prepare them, those are really fun. But I like to puree them into anything creamy, like a dip, an artichoke dip or a ranch dip or something like that. We make lentil sloppy joes. So instead of the
Okay.
meat, we
Yeah.
swap out lentils. Phenomenal Mexican food always. And then soups and stews are like an incredible way to just incorporate beans. They're very forgiving, and they're very so we dump beans all over the place.
Now, when it comes to this dense nutrition in beans, does that vary if one is using, say, dried beans versus canned beans?
It can. The one of the things that varies the most with the canned versus the dry beans is sodium, because a lot of the canned beans tend to be packed with
Yeah.
salt. So that's one of the bigger things that it really just kind of depends otherwise, like how they're canned, how you prepare them at home. But the flavor or the nutrition profile is not too different from dry to canned beans. Canned beans are an excellent option if you don't have time, or, I mean, they're so easy.
I mean, I think one of the I'll do that again. I think one of the most wondrous things about lentils is the fact that one doesn't need to soak them overnight like many other beans. They take such a short time to cook. They're almost like the fast food of the bean world or legume
They
world.
they really are. Yeah. And that's one of the things to consider too about beans when we're talking about like how they're sustainable or whether they're sustainable. From a growth or growing perspective, they are one of the most sustainable protein
Mhm.
sources like on the planet. They use a lot less water, land, petroleum than livestock, and they don't produce the methane and other greenhouse gases. But when it comes to how you're enjoying them, the cooking and how you're buying them packaging wise can make a difference.
Sure.
So if you're buying a can of beans, cans are usually well recycled, easily recycled. But if you're buying, a plastic bag of beans, that's something to consider
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
And then preparation, like you said, they take a long time to cook. Sometimes even if you do soak them. So are you having your gas stove or your electric stove on for 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours? Is that, you just have to ask yourself, is that sustainable? Or, what kind of energy sources are you putting into preparing something like that? So soaking can help definitely decrease the time. And things like a pressure cooker can also help
I was
decrease
about to say, instant pots, pressure cookers, and things like that. Because
it.
actually, in South America, where beans are very much part of everyone's everyday diet, pressure cookers and things like instant pots are used everywhere. Particularly in, I believe, in Argentina, because of the high altitude in the Andes. It takes so much more energy to bring water to boiling that pressure cookers are used. These small pressure cookers are used everywhere to prepare legume.
Yeah. And they help too. If you've heard of like lectins, it's one of the, anti-nutrients that some people have said, are in beans, but
No, I
that
didn't know about
but
that.
that tend yeah. So it's one of the protective ways, like plants tend to have ways, since they can't run away from predators.
Yes, yeah.
They have these kind of like defensive mechanisms in place. And one of the things in beans are lectins that can be kind of disruptive to us if we're eating them raw or undercooked. I have never eaten a raw bean, so it's not really, something that I consider like a danger or concern. But pressure cooking can definitely help reduce that lectin amount to make them really more digestible. The other thing that makes beans really digestible, because some people are like, oh, I can't have beans because they upset my GI, the gas that's known to come along with beans. But kombu, which is a seaweed, can help make beans more digestible, because
Okay.
this particular seaweed has an enzyme that helps break down the gas producing the gas producing sugar of the bean. So if you're cooking beans, and you can buy this seaweed, it's kombu, so it's called
Okay.
kombu. So you can buy it at, an Asian grocer, or a lot of health food stores, or markets will have, if they have like an Asian aisle or, sushi section. And you just put like a little inch square in with your beans, and it's like magic. They're so much more digestible. That, that's something I would offer for people who think they can't tolerate beans, to just give a try.
Now, you say that you eat beans of some sort almost every day. Do you have any gastric upset because, or is your body used to having beans every single day?
So my body is used to having beans every single day, and but that wasn't always the case. So what I would recommend is, well, there's a couple things if you're having tummy issues around beans. One is, ask yourself how you're eating them. So a lot of times we're having them in, a burrito with cheese and sour cream and hot sauce, or we're having pork and beans, next to a bacon cheeseburger or nachos or something like that. So I would urge you to try to isolate beans as the issue, right? So is it the beans or is it what you're eating it with? But also then starting slowly. So if you've never had beans or you don't eat them regularly, to have like 2 cups of beans in one day is probably not a good idea. Just like any new food. I mean, I have clients that are, standard American diet, and they don't go to these healthy foods like salads and, cruciferous vegetables, and they don't feel great because their body's like, what is this? Like, we don't even have the tools to break this down. So starting slowly can be a really good idea, just adding in like a 1/4 cup a day into something, and then just making sure you can build up that tolerance. Or you feel good. I mean, there's a chance beans aren't aligned with the way your body works, but starting off slowly is a good idea. And then chewing your food. I know I say this, I sound like a broken record, but really chewing anything that you have with beans, anything at all, but if you're introducing beans, so that it gives your digestive tract a much easier job to try to break it down. And so that typically will eliminate a lot of the issues.
You mentioned earlier there about beans, legumes, pulses being a more sustainable choice when it comes to protein. But it was interesting. I was reading earlier today that they actually produce 5 to 7 times less the greenhouse gases of wheat and canola, which I was quite surprised about.
I don't know, but that doesn't surprise me. I mean, the other cool thing about the beans is that they actually are great in crop rotation, because they add nitrogen back into the soil. So not only are they not, emitting, they're really making like the ground more fertile for either themselves, like making them more nutrient dense, or if you're planting another crop around or after them, they're introducing that nitrogen in the soil. So we need less fertilizers. The soil's just more naturally healthy. So they do a ton of stuff. Super beneficial.
Well, you've got me inspired. I did actually cook a huge amount of beans over Christmas, but that's for an article I'm going to be putting up on the site in a few days, and I'll tell you after this interview what happened.
Okay, perfect.
Do you have any suggested resources for recipes and the like when it comes to beans, legumes, and pulses?
So I would do an internet search. I mean, that's what I do sometimes, is like things like best bean recipes or popular bean or easy bean recipes, like simple, easy, best. Those are the ones that are going, depending on your cooking style and level of expertise, are going to give you the easiest, ways to incorporate them. And again, start slowly. But I would just use, the internet's not always our friend, but could be this time.
Okay. Jill, thank you very much for joining us on Good Food Revolution today. I am going to. I know I have some bags of dried beans at the back of the cupboard, the kitchen cabinet there, that I haven't used for quite some time. So that's where I will be going this evening. Thank you very much for joining us once again, and we'll see you next month.
Sounds good. Bye, Jamie.
Bye for now.